Morning, everybody. Welcome to the September 12th, 2023 meeting of Henderson County Fiscal Court. We are glad you're with us. For those who are watching online, we are glad you are with us as well. We will begin, as we always do, with an invocation, and we have a newbie going to be doing this for the first time. Father Richard Meredith from Holy Name is here to lead us in prayer. Father, if you'd come up to the podium, first of all, welcome. For those of you who don't know, he's been here about 2 months, 3 months?
Middle of June.
Middle of June. And we're glad you're with us. And the floor is yours.
I'm glad to be here. Yes. This Sunday, September 17th, is the 236th anniversary of the closing of the Constitutional Convention, which gave us our current Constitution, which has been amended. So I thought I would preface the short little prayer with these quotes from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. The preamble of the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And one other preamble, seldom read, I believe, from the Kentucky Constitution. We, the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, grateful to Almighty God for the civil, political, and religious liberties we enjoy, and invoking the continuance of these blessings, do ordain and establish this Constitution. This fiscal court is sworn to uphold and to operate under the rule of constitutional law, its members being servants of the people from whom their just authority under the law derives. So, I pray God's blessing upon you in this service, for God to enlighten your understanding in deliberation, for God to give you wisdom in your governance, that you might further justice, peace, security, prosperity, and the good of all. Thus may God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Father. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Magistrate Southard.
Here.
Magistrate Tompkins.
Here.
Magistrate Putman.
Here.
Magistrate Starks.
Here.
Magistrate Berry is absent today.
Gentlemen, you have before you in your packets the minutes of the August 22nd Henderson County Fiscal Court meeting. After a period of review, I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any corrections, additions, or clarifications? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is great to be back on our schedule of honoring our Judges Scholars, and it is also terrific that Holy Name School is now going to be participating in our Judges Scholar program again, and I will give a lot of credit to our Fiscal Court Clerk, Kurt Wiesen, for prompting that, and I'm really glad that we're going to start the year off honoring a Holy Name student. We have with us today Deacon Kitchens, who I'm going to ask to join me right up here.
My job, all I do is move the.
We're going to read a very special proclamation in your honor.
Got it figured out.
Whereas Deacon Kitchens has been chosen by Holy Name School to be the recipient of the Judges Scholar Award for for exceptional efforts in both academics and school activities. And whereas Deacon's hard work and dedication in making the most of educational experiences and developing positive relationships with teachers and other students will lead to future success. And whereas success is measured in many different ways, whether it be passing a test, scoring the winning point, achieving a particular goal, or taking the necessary steps for overall improvement. And whereas Holy Name School could not let Deacon's efforts go unnoticed. And whereas Henderson Fiscal Court supports Holy Name School and acknowledges these accomplishments as being significant because students such as Deacon Kitchens will be our future leaders. And now therefore, I, Brad Schneider, County Judge Executive of Henderson, join with the Henderson County Fiscal Court to proclaim today, September 12, 2023, as Deacon Kitchens Day in Henderson County, Kentucky.
Okay, can we, Steve, want to get family members and any school representatives come on up, take a picture? I love it. Anybody want to come up? All right, Deacon, why don't you hand that to your parents? And you're going to come. So the rest of you get a seat of honor right here. This is Steve Wells. Steve's going to probably give you some pleasure. Congratulations, Deacon, and congratulations to the family. It's a big deal. And again, I'm really glad Holy Name School is in the rotation with us. Their students deserve just as much recognition as the rest. And very glad you could join us. And Deacon will now be my wingman for the rest of the meeting. You got to fight the urge to make motions in seconds and vote, Deacon. It's really not part of the purview, but I can understand how you might get overexcited. Okay. We're going to start off. Brad Bickett, General Manager of HMP&L, is with us, and he's going to make a presentation about some plans they have with broadband. And Brad, if you want to take it off and introduce your guest too.
Sure. Judge Snyder, Court, I'm Brad Bickett, the General Manager of Henderson Municipal Power and Light. And with me this morning I have Brian Hardesty. He's our Chief Technology Officer. And we're going to talk about fiber and the plans that Hempel has to expand its fiber business. So we provide electric services to approximately 12,000 customers, but we also do provide fiber, internet, and voice services. We've been doing fiber for over 20 years, and we get positive feedback regularly, very regularly, from the customers that we serve. Brian has put together a very good presentation that outlines what it is that we want to provide to our customers. It was about a year ago when the utility board and the city commission approved our plan to expand our fiber business to residential customers. So at that point, general obligation bonds were issued so that we could fund the infrastructure. It's a pretty significant upfront cost. These areas are not deemed to be unserved or underserved in the city. And then much like some of the smaller towns out in Henderson County, these areas are going to be without fiber internet service that's being deployed by Connexon partnering with Kenergy, which I think is a very good thing, by the way. So the electric customers of Hempel are funding the build out for this fiber internet service to areas in and around the city of Henderson. What Brian's going to go through over with you is basically a presentation of the fiber plan. We've got some cost estimates at the end of the presentation. Just bear in mind that those are based on the information that we have today. We wanted to provide to you as best a representative of what the cost would be to build out some areas in Henderson County where we think that fiber internet service would be very desirable. And so with that, I want to turn it over to Brian, and you'll see the presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
One of the things you'll learn about me very quickly is I'm pretty passionate about this. So if I get excited, just get excited with me, okay? Again, my name is Brian Hardesty. I'm Chief Technology Officer with Henderson Municipal Power and Light. I've been in that role for almost 18 years. The project that's currently happening is a dream that I've had for the last 18 years. It's something that I've wanted to do for the community, not just the city of Henderson, but Henderson County for quite some time. But I wanted to introduce you first to who we are as Hempel Fiber, and give you a little bit of information about what we've been up to over the last 18 years. We are a smart business solution. So today, the fiber optic network that exists, it's about 160 miles of fiber cable that extends well into the county, serves businesses primarily. And on that, we provide gigabit fiber internet. We provide hosted phone services. So if you're a small business and you need to replace a phone system and you don't just want phone lines, we can actually do a cloud-based phone solution that takes care of everything for you. These are all about super simple solutions that are extremely easy to manage and are resources to the community. That includes things like managed networks. So in addition to managing phones, we'll manage the network that connects all those phones together in your computers and other devices, along with managed Wi-Fi. So what you're seeing is really, it's a total solutions package. We love working with our partner businesses where we walk in and say, what are your needs? And we build a custom solution that helps them be successful. We want to take this stuff about network and internet off their plate and let them do their business. And we do that very, very affordably. The most important piece that I wanted to bring to you today, the fact is that we're not just a service provider, we're a community partner. And the way that looks today is that for the last, over 10 years, we've been a partner to Henderson County. We provide services to all types of city-county partnerships, things like the airport, the planning commission. We connect things like the coroner's office, the detention center, the law library, PVA, Riverport, road department, and probably the biggest one is the Henderson County school system. We have provided fiber connectivity to all of the schools within the Henderson County school system for almost 15 years. And that's continued to where they're now offering plus 10 gigabit connectivity to each individual school. That enables them to do amazing things with that connectivity out to the schools. This is our team. It's a team I'm very, very proud of. It includes things like managers such as myself and Chad Kitzman, our fiber manager. It includes network and systems administrators, fiber technicians, and a lot of experience, including some of our GIS staff. There's over 135 years on this screen of experience. And that's after Tony Curtis just retired with almost over 30 years of experience. So very, very proud of this team. What's the reason I bring this forward to you? This is what we bring as Hempel Fiber. We bring experience, we bring that helping hand and that customer focus. So why Hempel Fiber? What was the concept? Why do we think it's important that we do this? We just really imagined what the community communicated to us was this frustration with their current providers. Everything they had to do with internet was a frustration. They were always disappointed. They were stuck with these loading screens. How can you help us? So we started listening to our customers. We started creating solutions. We became a network provider, and ultimately we're just providing peace of mind. And what that means to us is that when they call, we show up, we fix it. It's that simple. I know that sounds crazy, but it's that simple. No smoke and mirrors. We're 100% fiber optic through a full gigabit network. No bait and switch. So this is important to us. We're not establishing service contracts at one price, and then 12 months later you're under a totally different price. You never know what that price is going to be. Our price is our price is our price. I can say that in the 18 years that I've been involved with Hempel Fiber, we've never raised a price. We just make more bandwidth. So we just increase the speeds, keep your price levels available to you. And solutions, not problems. I think so often with existing providers throughout our communities, when you have that situation, you have that question, you don't even want to call because it's so frustrating to get help. We have to actually encourage our customers to call us. We're going to fix the problem for you. So it's just a different experience. We're laser focused on customer care. That's what we do. It's reliability and customer service over and over and over. I can't count the number of times that I've spoken to customers and say, we own your issue. I don't care whose problem it is. I don't care whose fault it is. I don't care where the problem is. We're going to fix you and help you get through the problem. And our customers respond to that. So really what we're after is not just serving the largest enterprise customers, which we do, but we also serve the smallest mom and pop delis and the tiniest little family-owned businesses and the folks that don't have their own IT staffs. We can very affordably bring them service and bring it with the help that they need to be successful and focus on their business. So that's where we come into the next phase for Hempel Fiber that Brad mentioned to you, is that we are expanding this business to residential. It's been a constant request from our citizens, and I'll say it's a request is probably the nice way to put it. They've been yelling for us to do this for a long time. So we're excited to finally get everything in place to be able to bring this forward. The city's support to bond and finance the project within our service territory and within the city limits. To give you a little bit of a status update on where we are. We're currently working to field every pole. So we've got staff out literally taking information on every single pole, every single backyard. We're gathering that information. We've completed design for the first design area, and we're working to continue that design work. We're hoping to start construction before the end of the year and complete the project within 18 months within our service territory. So by the end of 2025 at the absolute latest, we should be completely built out throughout the city, our service territory, and the areas within the city limits. And please, if you have any questions I'm going, do not hesitate to interrupt me. Wanted to bring this map forward to you. A concern was brought to us, and it's been a concern that's been on my mind for a little while, that what you're seeing is a map of the different energy utilities, power utilities within Henderson County. So the blue area indicates the service territory for Henderson Municipal Power and Light. The red indicates the service territory for Kenergy. These two areas, we have plans, we have solutions for bringing multi-gigabit fiber to residences. The other area that's shown is Kentucky Utilities. This is the yellow area that's shown on the map. These are the areas that we want to talk about today. These are the areas that there are no announced plans that we know of to bring fiber internet to these citizens. Two of those areas can join us closely. So those are two areas that are a much easier solution, and two are a little further out and a little bit more of a concern. Just a reminder on what Hempel brings to the table. So today we have 160 miles of fiber optic plant, and that includes connections out to the county schools. So keep that in mind. Today we do have fiber optic cables that extend towards Corydon, specifically to A.B. Chandler Elementary. We do have connectivity down to Cairo, connectivity to Niagara, and connectivity to Spotsville that exist, fiber cables out into the county. And we serve businesses along those routes. So where we could, we have connected businesses along those routes. Let's talk about these areas in a little bit of detail. So the first one is along Zion Road. This is out to kind of the east side of the city. You've got about 425 residential and 19 businesses in this area. So if you will, as we're looking at the map, kind of the cross-hatched areas are the areas within the city limits. The red line is the KU area. Blue dots indicate KU customers. Okay, so this is the first area that we're looking at. So outside of the city limits, so not including all the blue dots that are within the city limits, but just outside of the city limits, you've got 425 residential customers, 19 business customers. Second area is the area that's kind of up on Riverport Road, Old Geneva Road. KU services that area. Outside the city limits, this is almost entirely business, and it's actually an area we already serve today. So, check mark, problem solved. We will continue to provide fiber services, multi-gigabit services in this area. So this area is completely taken care of for you. The next area is out Corydon and Smith Mills. So Smith Mills being the north side of that, and then the larger concentration of blue dots in the bottom is the Corydon area. Here you're looking at a much larger area. You're also looking at about 558 residential customers, 43 businesses in that area, about 27 miles of road.
So will you reach each resident in that KU?
Yes, so if we move
Footprint?
forward with the build-out, our intention is to build every resident in that area.
Okay.
So if you will, what will happen, the concept here is that between your partnership and the work that you've done with Kenergy and Connexon and us, you will have 100% coverage, all residents is fiber. That's significant. And there is not a lot of places in this state that will be able to say they have 100% fiber coverage on all of their customers or citizens.
So we've heard best case into 2025. What's worst case?
That is the case. So the best case is actually a much shorter timeline. So we're hoping to have the majority of the city built out by the end of 2024. And the proposal that we're bringing and the request that we're bringing today is that we would put these areas into the same timeline. So we would build them at the same time, concurrently, with no priority of one over the other. So
you
we
got
would be
joint-
designing and building both areas, all the areas at the same time.
So joint use agreement, stuff like that's not, you've already got that factored in, already working on all that, I'm assuming?
It's always a concern. So we have an existing pole attachment agreement with KU. We do need to revise that agreement, so I'm currently working with them. I don't anticipate any issues. They operate under the Public Service Commission, and they have a standardized agreement that we believe that we'll be able to be party to also. So
Okay.
probably the only delaying factor that I anticipate is we will be working with KU to do make-ready, pole change-outs, those sort of things. So we'll work together on those things, but we're both power utilities. We work together really well. So I would anticipate that to continue. We understand each other's business and can work together really well. So, and we'll work with those folks and continue to build as quickly as possible. What I can control are things like how many people I put on the ground to do the design work, how many construction crews that we have. We feel that we can staff all those up to do these additional areas with no problem. Does that help?
Yep.
Let's see here. The last area that I had for you was Cairo and Roberts. Again, you've got a couple of districts represented in these two areas. 203 residential customers, 7 businesses, and I apologize, I'm noticing my misspelling of business right away. But so about 210 in District 2, and then in District 3, we've got 163 residential customers and 10 businesses. And again, basically the blue dots that you're seeing is the data from KU that says these are the meters that are in that area. So that's every blue dots represents every resident that has electric service. Okay, so these are the dollar amounts that Mr. Bickett had alluded to earlier. I wanted to show you a little bit of the investment that we already have in the county. So the existing backbone that I mentioned of the school systems, along with our route along our transmission line down to Seabury, is a little over $800,000 that we've already invested in the connectivity into the county. We have also invested in upgrading to a 100 gigabit core network that helps us provide that 10 gigabit connectivity to these residences. We've got almost $500,000 in that so far. And those two things will be leveraged to provide services out into the county in these areas. The new build areas that we're looking at, we do need to extend the backbone. So I mentioned the backbones go towards those county schools. We need to extend that to loop in these areas and provide redundant connections into these areas. The last thing I want to have is, all of Roberts to go down because we have a single fiber cut. That's not the reliability levels that we provide. So we need to actually ring the backbone and extend that backbone into the county. That does more than just create this network. So what that does for you is it opens up the opportunity for us to work with the county to connect whatever else that you guys have out there. So things like volunteer fire departments, different county offices, whatever that might be out there, we'll be able to look at those needs as we build this backbone and connect some other things for the county, just like we do for Planning Commission today. So that's about 30 miles that we're estimating to build. It's about $600,000 to build the backbone. You've got the 4 areas listed there. Zion, we're looking at $799,200. Area 2, the Riverport, I mentioned we've already built, so no cost there. Area 3, the Cord and Smith Mills area, you're looking at just over $1 million. Area 4, the Cairo Roberts, 387 passing, $696,600. So this is the total build cost, $3,177,600 that we are estimating based on our models that we're using today. I do want it to be fully open that is based on what we anticipate the cost to be. We're currently doing RFPs for material and construction, and so those numbers will refine. But that's what we're estimating without detailed engineering done. So this is 10,000 foot, looking at a map and drawing road miles and estimating the mileage and passings based on the information that we have. But we feel that's a pretty good estimate, and it shouldn't. It's a good, solid, conservative estimate. So I would not anticipate the cost going over that. So I believe I'm comfortable saying that's a worst case scenario, and we may be able to identify some savings as we get into our build itself to help with that number some. So that's our request. We're asking the fiscal court to help us fund this project. The city has funded the city build. We're in turn asking the fiscal court to help us fund the build. This is just the outside plant cost. So I want you to understand there is still an additional investment that Hempel will be making That includes things like the drops to the houses themselves, the installation inside the houses, all the materials needed inside the houses, also the equipment that's used inside the home. So the optical network terminals that take it from glass to Ethernet for the homes to use with Wi-Fi and their connections, the type of connections they're used to making today. The solution will include full managed Wi-Fi. We include everything under one price. So everything that we do, it's one price, simple billing. Not complex billing, not you add this option, you add that option. They choose a service level, that's the cost. Their gateways are included, the parental control systems, the neat functions that allow them to know who's connected to their network. They can control things like, what are my kids doing online? All of that's included, one price. So we
So
don't
what-
do.
What are your price points?
Okay, it's probably, I thought we might get to that. So we are priced basically just like Connexon. Okay, so you're going to see very similar rates here. We're going to jump through a couple slides here. So these are the same services we are offering in the city. Exactly the same. We will offer the exact same services out in the county. So 1 gigabit full symmetrical. I know there's lower, cheaper packages out there, but I'm just one of those people that I'm so passionate about this. And again, simplified billing, customer care, customer service. I'm building a network fully capable of a gigabit symmetrical. That's what our customers deserve. They deserve a full gigabit symmetrical. They will never have to worry about bandwidth over the next 3 to 5 years, and by the time they're worrying about it again, I'll increase all these numbers. So this is the concept here, is that you buy this package, you get it put into place, and you don't worry about your internet anymore. It's just there, it just works, it doesn't matter what you connect, you always have enough bandwidth. So that's the reason we don't do sub-gigabit packages. We'll have the 2 gig package and the 5 gig packages for those that love to game and go crazy nuts and just can't have enough bandwidth. We'll be happy to offer those too. So those are the price points for you, starting at the $79.95 per month. What other questions can I answer for you?
Is that it?
That's it. That's what I've got for you.
I've got a lot of questions.
Okay.
And I'll start with your last. I don't know that it's that people don't want a gig. It's can they afford a gig, even at $80 a month. And I think Connexion's sympathetic to that. So I think they offer either a 250 or 500 megabyte option for as low as $50 a month. Would you entertain that?
So we've had quite a few discussions about the pricing, and like Brian said, we do not want to follow this promotional pricing strategy that's so common today that people are, quite frankly, not happy with. I know for myself, I'm told that my internet through my current provider, cable provider, is one price, and then a few months later, it's been raised up.
Not what Connexion's doing, though.
Right. No, point taken. The key for us, we're able to offer, we might be able to offer something sub 1 gig at some point. But what we do not want to do right now is offer that initially without having this project, the business, proceed as we plan. In other words, once we are cash flow positive, then I think it makes sense for us to look at some lower speeds. The fact is, and Brian can correct me on this, but when you build out a 1 gig system, if you're selling a lower bandwidth than that, then that's revenue that you're not receiving that otherwise is the same infrastructure being used to serve it. So at this point, we're not planning to do anything below 1 gig.
So your debt service payments are based on this plan, period. This revenue, period. right?
Our financial model is based on this revenue. That's correct. And we've explored offering something, again, that would be a lower price for less bandwidth. But we don't want to be out there and then have to raise the price for what service we're providing. And like Brian said, I do believe 100% that the service that we're going to offer is equal to or better than what's out there today, even by other competing fiber providers. So I don't want to go out there and sell service for less than what it's worth or what we need to make it work.
And you're participating, though, in the federally subsidized lower income payment plans.
That's right.
Affordable connectivity.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll participate in that also. So Just like, and I know that in Henderson County, anybody that has a student in Henderson County school system, you can apply, and it's $30 a month that gets paid towards that bill. So we will also be participating in that plan. I guess the other data point, just to help you a little bit, is that those lower cost plans never include any of the extras. So it doesn't include your gateway for Wi-Fi, it doesn't include parental controls, it doesn't include any of the tools that are used to manage your Wi-Fi system. Those are all extra costs. So what happens often is you buy that lowest tier plan, and then the majority of people go ahead and buy managed Wi-Fi. They buy this piece and buy that piece. And by the time they've added all the pieces up, along with some extra fees that always seem to show up on bills that we don't charge, it gets back up to that same price, and you're getting less bandwidth.
Is there a cost for every receiver? Like at my house, I got five. I got 5 TVs, and every one of those boxes costs me $7 a month. Plus, then there's a service contract. If anything goes wrong, you know, they get you on that.
Yeah.
Is this all inclusive? Like if I wanted 5, it'd be, and I wanted 1 gig, it'd be $79.95.
Yep. So it is all inclusive. Let me be very clear though. We are not offering cable television. Okay. Now we are partnering with a lot of other providers. So you can go get your cable TV from DirecTV Stream, YouTube TV, Fubo. There's a list a mile long of ways to get television service. So this is
Right.
television services outside of this. Most of the newer TVs that folks are purchasing don't require set-top boxes anymore. If
Right.
you choose to have one, they're usually given to you for free. For instance, DirecTV Stream offers a free box. So that's not included in this conversation. But no, everything that we install in the home is included. There's no extra fees for cable modems. There are no contracts. Our terms are month to month on every customer that we have today. If we feel like that if we're providing the right service, if we're providing a high quality service and we're providing customer support, you will choose to remain our customer. We don't have to lock you into a contract to keep you. It's in our opinion very predatory. It's also can be very creates a relationship with the customer that's not positive. Just like you said, you want to make a change to your service, and the first thing they say is you're under contract, you can't lower your service. Well, we want you to be able to raise and lower your bandwidth as you see fit.
Yeah, and streaming is the way to go anymore. I mean, you know, you talk about cable TV. I mean, most people are going to streaming now. You know, it's just the smart.
They are, and we literally spend hours with our customers educating them about streaming services. So we're happy. We've actually activated our first customers here in town at the Imperial Building. So we're working with those residential customers as they come in. We're actually educating them. We've gone into their home, helped them sign up for DirecTV Stream, helped them install the box, showed them how to use it. Because it's not our service, but that's the customer service level that we try to provide.
Just to put a finer point here, are you asking us for $3.17 million?
Yes, sir.
Okay, for the court's just perspective, and we know that these KU areas have been something we've been concerned about since Kinergy announced its plan. We have voted to, pending a contract, give Kinergy $4 million to make available internet to 9,231 homes total. The ask here today is $3.17 million for 1,446 homes total. So the price per residence is quite higher. The other thing too is, are you aware of any plans Kinergy might be making to do this? I mean, KU might be making to do this themselves, because as you know, and we discussed, several judge executives in the region have reached out to KU who have these similar gaps in coverage to encourage KU to get into this business. Have you heard any rumblings from KU so far?
We have not. I will tell you that the other challenge that does exist is they are years behind. So we've been working to create this, to look at the funding, to the engineering and planning and everything that goes around it. It's been taking place for years.
Yeah.
It takes years to put these plans together, years to put the contracts and the funding together. So that's the other primary concern for me. That is, if they do decide to do something in the future, that you're going to see a significant delay seeing that build.
Mm-hmm. I think Connexion's reaching out to them to be their partner if they decide. But their territory is also huge. Where they start, how they build this out, there's a lot of questions there. I just wonder if in the end it'll affect your ability to get pole attachment agreements, any of the make-ready, depending on what their plans are. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I think it's makes sense for it to be a concern. I recognize that, but keep in mind that KU has been working with telecom companies for a lot of years, so they're used to lots of attachers, especially you can imagine in places LG&E's territory in Louisville. You know, they're dealing with 10, 15 different fiber companies, all in Louisville. Right now, there's over 5 fiber companies just providing fiber services just in Louisville. So it's not new for them to have requests for fiber attachments, and I don't think their own plans would hinder us from doing it also.
I was going to add to that. I don't think that in these areas that there's going to be a real estate on the pole shortage based on, you know, even if it connects on and Hempel are in that space. I don't see it.
So they don't negotiate exclusive attachment contracts to where they say, if let's say Connexon negotiated something to where they said we're going to be the only ones doing fiber on these poles. That's not something done within the industry?
My understanding is that as a pole owner, you have to allow attachment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can tell you from an AT&T perspective, I know enough about it that you can't restrict usage.
Okay, good.
KU could
You
not.
can put a price on it.
You
right?
can,
And you
but
may or may
again-
not like the price.
Yeah.
That's the restriction.
So
I
the
think.
PSC does oversee these attachments.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
There is a governing body there.
If I could just interject one quick thing. I'm in an interesting position here because actually at the radio station, I was the IT person. And it was Hempel that provided and still does provide the internet service. And I have to say that I know Brian personally, Dwayne, their whole staff. And what they've said is true. You will not have that type of personal service that you get from anybody else. I'm sorry, Spectrum and everybody else, because they're right here. They live in our community, and that's their passion. We never had any problems, and in fact, if we did have a problem, they fixed it right then. And that never happened when we were with any of the other providers that we used to be with. And I can tell you, just from a personal standpoint, I would jump at that 1 gig service as soon as you get that cable past my house. Now, I'm blessed because I live in the city. I would love to see that same connectivity for our neighbors in the county as well, to have those types of options. But I just want to say thank you for all the things that you've done, when I was back at SON. I wish you luck in this endeavor.
I've got a couple more questions. The Zion Road corridor, your number was 425 households out there that you could identify. Do you know how many of those, any approximation of how many of those already have service from Charter or Spectrum?
I did not go through 100% of all of these addresses, but every address that I checked had cable TV services at least claimed available. So
Well, there's a
based
difference
on,
there, yeah.
I agree. Based on the mapping and drive outs that we've done, we have found cable network in almost all these areas.
That's Charter.
Spectrum
Yeah,
Charter.
Charter. And same with the Corden corridor, 558 identified residences. Any clue what percentage of those have availability with Spectrum?
Again, I looked at all 4 areas, and in every address that I chose based on the FCC broadband maps, which again are argumentative, but they're served. I
Okay,
have
so it's
not
hard to
heard-
tell what's actually true, isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
very, very hard. So
Yeah.
and even like, for instance, the more challenging factors is we've got some MediaCom mixed into the county.
Yeah.
And MediaCom offers a very different service level than even Spectrum. So often you go out to the areas you find cable TV plant, and and the same thing's true of AT&T. You go to an address, you see plant on the pole, but when you call that provider and say, can I get service? The answer is no.
No.
And
I know
it's-
that to be true. I live in Happy Acres, which is technically served by MediaCom. I haven't heard or seen from them in decades.
years.
So,
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. It's not just a Henderson County challenge, but it's a challenge for all of us. And we're even finding that to be true in areas as we go to those map and look, okay, where is AT&T fiber deployed? They're claiming areas that you
No.
can't get service in. You call and ask and you can't get it.
Huge frustration for us because those FCC maps dominate the conversation in Frankfurt. It's an ongoing frustration.
And it's a huge issue as you seek federal and state funding for these projects because
Yes.
you're literally having to argue about every single address
Yes.
and prove that that address doesn't have service. It can be difficult.
Yeah, another
to do.
frustration. They can take the statements made by large telecom to the FCC as gospel, but if you want to fight it, you have to do it home by home and encourage the homeowners to figure out a way to declare themselves unserved. It's kind of wacky. It's really frustrating. If the county decided to do less than 3.17 million or not do 3.17 million, how would that impact this project?
Speak to that. So I want to be very careful when we talk using funds to do the build out. And what I mean by that is with our electric customers, paying for the infrastructure build out within that territory, we're have responsibility to make sure that we provide that service to them. If the amount that the county wants to fund would be less than the actual cost of the build, what I would propose to you is that we would build that with what funding is offered. In other words, we would build some percentage of the area with the intent to expand it as cash flow allows. So in other words, if you said, well, we can do 70% of the cost to build the infrastructure, and like Brian mentioned, we still have equipment that's not included in that. We're going to provide that because that's recovered through the customer service that we're providing. But what we would have to do is sit down and figure out, okay, we want to build 70% of that infrastructure. What is the priority? And so we would build that out, and then, like I said, just wouldn't happen as quickly. The rest of the infrastructure could be built out, but I want to be careful to make sure that we're doing right by the folks we serve.
So each of these homes is going to represent, at a minimum, $960 a year revenue, right?
That's
So,
correct, yes.
so and then it's going to be up. What is long-term from this footprint? What is your cash flow projection for that? When do you see it becoming positive as far as cash flowing?
So what, unless Brian's done some more work, I'm familiar with the financial model that we have put together for the area around the city that we serve now with electric. And as of now, we should cash flow positive, continuing to pay the debt service. We should cash flow positive in year 4. And we will basically, we will pay back the amount used from our reserves in 6 years. Now, we have not done that financial model for this particular build-out to answer your question, but we do believe, we know that the model it works. It's feasible for the project that's now in the process with the city. I don't know if you have any other thoughts.
Just some simple, quick numbers. Where the number that you're seeing, the total number is based on $1,800 per passing. That's the build cost for the outside plant. We have an additional just under $2,000 that we invest in every installed customer. So we've actually got, in addition to the $1,800 per passing cost, every time we install a customer, we incur about $2,000 in cost. So you can do a little math real quick and kind of idea when does that start making money. So it does take a couple of years for this project to start generating cash that would continue to build, if that's the drive of the question.
A couple more items for perspective. The initial, the bid that Connexon made for the ARPA money that we had set aside was not about whether our money would be crucial to finishing the project here. It was merely moving up the timeline. They say they're going to do it regardless. What we were paying for was to increase the timeline so that everybody in Henderson County would have service that was eligible through the Kenergy plan to be up and running by next year. And this is slightly different. What you're basically saying, whatever happens in the county is relying on however much money we might approve for this. Am I characterizing that right? So if we don't, it won't happen. As far as you know.
Let me caveat that. Now, at some point in time in the future, if there's no action taken by this court, I believe that if things go the way we think they will, we could expand the service beyond the current area around the city. The challenge there again, though, is going to be to ensure that we're not subsidizing that build-out from our electric customers.
Yeah.
So as the fiber business can fund it, it could happen. But that's way too far out for us to say today. But other than that, what you said is.
Are you planning on making applications for federal grants, state grants to help this build out?
I think we can. The challenge that we face is that today, if we start that application project, we're out to the end of 2025 to receive funding. And that's not the timeline, that's the hope that's been communicated to us. So we can make those applications, but many of those have to be awarded before build starts. So we would be massively delaying the project to look at that type of funding scenario. So it's an opportunity, it's an option that if we get a couple years out from now, we can start that process. But even a successful application where we're fighting all those address issues that you mentioned, we wouldn't see cash until into 2025 at the earliest, is my understanding.
What about the 3.1 million? Do you have to have it all this calendar or this fiscal year, or can we split that up over 2 years? Is that an option? And also, would it be considered, and I understand you're in this to make money too, but is there any type of, let's say we could do, just spitballing here, and this is just my talking. Okay, we can do 2.5 million, but we're gonna need you guys to help us get that gap to 3.1. You know what I mean? We can give it to you as an interest-free loan, but pay that back. We're willing to commit to that. Either of those two options is that a possibility or to be considered?
I think that could be considered. That would have to be something that would be kind of worked through the terms of
Sure.
how that would work.
Mhm.
But I could see that being able to justify that type of arrangement.
Mhm.
The key being that positive cash flow would be
Sure.
paying back the loan.
Absolutely.
interest-free.
Yes, sir.
I think that's something that could be discussed.
Right.
And
Can I-
and to the other point, and Brian can talk a little bit more about how the costs are going to be incurred through the build out. But as I understand, we're still probably 2 years away from completion of the build out, and we expect, like he said, for this to be able to be done at the same time, parallel path. So I don't think it would be. I think it would be doable to have that,
Like an installment.
as long as it's during that construction period of time. I think we could work through that.
Okay. I'm just trying to think outside the box here to provide options to make this successful.
Yeah, we can definitely. We're doing the same thing inside the city. So we're the bonds that we floated as we complete a design area, which is about 1,400 passings. We actually draw on that bond as we complete that construction. So I would see a similar environment where we're breaking it up over time here too, working just fine. It wouldn't have to be in a single cash installment or anything like that.
And just to refresh the court's memory, we had a presentation from Connexon, and then we decided to let it out for bid, and there were bids that we solicited from different organizations and evaluated. Before we moved forward and got into the weeds of any sort of agreement like this, we would have to let out that KU section for bid and proposals to see what other proposals would come forward. So we can't get deep into the weeds of
We
deal
would be
making
required.
today.
So when you talk about this money going toward the build-out, am I understanding the build-out means that you're going to be dropping into the residential houses as you build out, or the build-out and then we'll do the residential? So
Yeah, so we divide the build into two things, what we call the outside plant, which is all the main cables along the pole lines, the underground, the infrastructure that services the houses and businesses. When the resident orders it, we string the cable from the pole, if you will, into the house. So that's the drop cost. So the number that you're seeing today is the outside plant portion. It doesn't include the drop cost of the house, but we don't install that until service is ordered. So as soon as, customer calls up and says, I'd like to have your internet service, we roll a truck out, we install the drop into the house, the connectivity within the house, and that's all outside of this cost. That's the cost.
that'll actually be the cost y'all incur.
How many businesses that are in these service areas have actually come to you asking when you might be able to offer this kind of service? Do you keep any kind of?
Everyone that's got my phone number. So yes, I mean, Well, it's fascinating as we work with the businesses we have in town today and start to talk to more and more residential customers. They say, "What about me?" Everybody that we talk to that has any exposure to us says, "What about me?" And my first question is who's your power provider? If that answer is Kenergy, I've got an answer for them. If it's us, I have an answer for them. If it's KU, I do not have an answer for them.
Thank you.
Another reminder, the $4 million that we set aside for the Kenergy Connexon project is ARPA money, federal grant money we got. I think, obviously this would be paid for out of reserve, basically, just so everybody understands that. Any other questions? I think you've given us a lot to think about. We'll have to maybe back up and consider options, and we may be reaching out for you. I appreciate HMP&L even considering this. I think it is a gap that was immediately identified when the Connection maps came out, obviously because Kenergy cannot encroach into those territories as far as I know. So thank you, and I'm sure there will be more questions, but I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We have with us Dylan Ward, City of Henderson project engineer, and also Mayor Brad Staten, who are going to make a presentation to us about the Henderson Sports Complex. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. Judge Snyder, Magistrates Court. I just wanted to start by saying that we at the city very much value our cooperative relationship between the city and county. We've had a number of projects that we have had the opportunity to work with Judge Snyder on and a couple of the magistrates as part of the city-county co-op, including how we're going to roll out information related to the I-69 build-out, how we were able to partner together to bring a distillery in the future to the city, and a number of other things. And so we very much value you and very much value our cooperative relationship. We're here this morning to introduce where we are at, sort of a status update, and make a request of the court in regards to our sports complex project. The sports complex project was first identified in 2015 as part of the vision plan study. It was a comprehensive vision plan study that involved hundreds of people from our community. There were two top needs that were identified, and one of them was a sports complex. And so we have been working on that for many years. Obviously, we have activity going now toward the base bid for that project. And as Judge Snyder alluded to, we brought with us our project manager, Dylan Ward, and he's going to walk through just a little bit more about the project, and then I'm going to explain what our ask is of the court after he does that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. As the mayor stated, my name is Dylan Ward. I'm with the City of Henderson, and thank you all for having us here today and to hear a little bit more about our project. So as you can see up on the screen, there's kind of a site plan for our master plan. And so as the mayor mentioned, this project has been on the city's radar for many years. In its current format, it started with the city's vision plan, which was completed in 2015, and then it was brought forward as a potential project. Following that, in 2017, the Hunden Group actually performed a feasibility study and determined that the city should proceed with developing an outdoor youth sports facility. I want to make sure I stress that this is something that we are building for the youth. It can be utilized by others, but that was the primary drive for this project. And so they determined that it was a need in our community, both for local and regional needs. So it was determined that this new sports complex, which is housed on Airline Road, would be the new home for PCMA youth baseball as well as youth football. The current facilities used by both of those organizations are subpar and outdated, and they were needing of a new home. The good thing about this facility is that the baseball fields could also be used by any age of girls softball, and the multi-purpose fields, as you can imagine, they can be used by soccer, football, lacrosse, field hockey, or any other sport that utilizes an open field format. So while the primary purpose has always been of this sports complex to serve the youth of Henderson first, we also believe that this complex will help generate some tourism dollars as well. So after hosting several public meetings where we had public input, finalizing the design, and securing funding for the sports complex, the city finally opened bids in the fall of last year for the first phase of the master plan, which you can see here. And then in November, after the bids were open, the Henderson City Board of Commissioners awarded a base bid to Art Construction in the total approximate amount of $10.5 million to get the project started. And So on this, when we designed this, we designed the entire site. And so we took a phased approach, knowing that if we built all this out at one point, it was going to be pretty expensive. And so the first phase, or at least the base bid, included the 4 baseball fields, which you'll see kind of 2 quads there. It's the one on the right. It included a concession area for that. It included the parking below that quad, which is kind of in darker color. And it included 1 multi-purpose field to the east. And then you can kind of see everything else that's kind of faded out. That was left for future phases. So when we did the base bid and we awarded it to Art Construction, there were a lot of these items that were intentionally left out of the base bid for multiple reasons. One thing was the paving and concrete work. We actually had existing annual contracts that had been bid separately, and so we knew that if we utilized those contracts, we would save money. There were also items such as the field lighting that we intentionally left out of the base bid so that we could bid separately and get more bids from specialized lighting vendors as to avoid a general contractor markup fee. So before we took this $10.5 million bid to the commission for approval, we gave them a list of additional items with estimated pricing of all these additional things that were in the master plan, so that before they approved this base bid, they could get an actual feel for what the overall cost of the project might be for the first phase, depending on which items they wanted to include or not include. So even though they approved the $10.5 million, it was clear from the beginning, here's a list of things that we're going to want in the first phase as well, and we want you to be aware of that as we're moving through this project. So since that time, we've had regular discussions with the commission about what additional items we should pursue in the first phase, and have been actively working towards adding those to the first phase of the project. So just to give you an idea of some of the things that we're looking at adding to the first phase, in addition to the base bid, we're pursuing pricing and approval for additional items such as artificial turf for all 4 baseball fields, as well as the first multi-purpose field. We're pursuing pricing and bids for the field lighting for additional multi-purpose fields, which you can see there on kind of the far right of the screen. A new press box, a new playground area, and additional parking as well to support these additional facilities. So the commission's goal has always been to add as many of these amenities and things that will make the sports complex better as we can in the first phase, in order to bring the city and the county the best possible sports facility for our youth. And so just to give you an idea of where we stand currently with money, currently we have about $15.5 million in bond proceeds that we have set aside for this project. But in total, in our conversations with the commission, we have a list of additional projects that are desired to be added in the first phase, and that list totals right around $18.5 million. And so through our work sessions, through our meetings, the board has expressed that these are items like the lighting, the artificial turf, things that we would like to have in this complex. And so because of that gap between that 15.5 and that 18.5, we've looked into all sorts of alternate funding sources, such as naming rights and grants. And so just to give you an idea, our former mayor, Mayor Austin, he's actually leading the charge on doing some naming rights. So Greenville, Kentucky, they had a sports complex that we went down and visited, and they were very successful in selling naming rights to businesses to help fund their complex. And so we've actually already acquired a title sponsor in the amount of $500,000, as well as grants. We also have already received a land and water grant for the amount of $200,000. So that $700,000 to date, which we're still actively pursuing, other grants and other naming rights, is going to continue to grow and help us close that gap. But as you can imagine, there's still that gap there. And so with that, I will turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, sir. So as Dylan had said, our project right now, we're sitting at around $15.5 million in bond proceeds. We have identified extras that we would like to include in the first phase. In the build out of the first phase, the more expensive parts are actually getting the ground ready to put the fields on. The irrigation and the leveling and all the activities there. And then once you get that, it becomes materially cheaper to add extras to the project in relation to how much it costs for the ground cost. So we have, we believe that we're going to be able to raise roughly $2 million through naming rights and field naming rights and other sports-related activities that our former mayor is actually leading up. And so that leaves us a gap of about $1.25 million in total to get us to that $18.5 million figure to complete out the first phase with all the amenities that we had wanted to add. I know you said that turfing the field, we're looking at actually doing the infield and outfield turf for the baseball fields, both to minimize long-term maintenance costs and also to differentiate the complex from other areas around us. We are wanting to add the 2 extra multipurpose fields, we're wanting to add some additional parking, and we're wanting to add some lighting. The lighting would be for the 4 baseball fields and the main showcase multipurpose field. So the multipurpose field, we would have 2 that were made of grass. We would have 1 that was made of AstroTurf. And on that turf field, we would want to light it as well, so that we would have a place for advanced play for the youth in our area to promote youth activities. What we would like to ask of the court is, when we take a look at this project and we've started identifying funding sources, potential funding sources, one thing that we readily identified through our discussions is that this particular sports complex is not just going to serve the youth of Henderson City, it's also going to serve the youth of Henderson County. And it is something that while it is a city-led project, and while the county did not ask for this project to be done, and we certainly recognize that, it is a project that was identified by the entire community, which included residents of the city and residents of the county, as something that was important for the future of youth sports in our community. And so one thing that we would, the one thing that we would like to ask of you for consideration is that we would love for you to consider funding the lighting for the project. The lighting is a line item on the sheet. Did you pass out the sheets? Do you mind to give them sheets? So Dylan has a sheet with a breakdown of the base bid cost and all of the additional cost for the sports complex, for this first phase of the sports complex. On this you will see the line item cost for the turf and the lighting and the parking and the additional concession areas and things like that. The lighting came in at a bid of about right at $1.25 million. If the county were to consider giving us that money, it would certainly allow us to build the facility at the $18.5 million level, which includes all the amenities that we have identified that would be a significant positive for the project, without the need of cutting something that was equal in value to form a less expensive project to meet our bond proceeds that we have set aside for the project. So with that, we would love to open the floor up for questions from the judge or magistrates or members of the court.
So has the PCMA put any money in? Because the fields that's out there for the girls softball complex, I was a big part of that.
Uh-huh.
I was coaching and was on the committees and stuff, and we sold, it seemed like 20 million candy bars. Just for the fund, because we actually paid for part of that park to be built.
Uh-huh.
So has PCMA, are they putting up anything, or is the city funding it all?
I'll tell you what, Dylan, do you mind to discuss PCMA's involvement?
So actually, part of the naming rights charge that former Mayor Austin is leading, he actually, I think just last month, met with PCMA's board, and for the very purpose of getting them involved specifically in the naming rights. So the way that this complex, not to go too into detail, the way that this complex will operate will be slightly different than the models the city has used in the past, in the sense that the city has actually in the current year, because we plan for this to be ready, by next spring, next summer. The current plan is for the city to actually operate it. So we're going to have 2 staff, a manager and a grounds person who's going to help actually maintain the facility itself. So in the past, a lot of times what the city has done is we've partnered with organizations. They've helped build it, they've helped provided the funding, and then we've turned the facility over to them. Well, in this case, it's going to remain, kind of under the city's operation. And so as opposed to that model necessarily, we hope to get them involved in naming rights type stuff, selling banners, and there'll be some sort of agreement on how that money will be then funneled back into either the construction or their operations. And so Steve Austin, he's been working with them to figure out how they can partner with us and support this venture, specifically through naming rights, but there may be other opportunities as well as we figure out what the operations model is going to look like, if that answers your question.
Thank you.
On your naming rights, is there a bottom line on what's the what's the minimum you could get to get your name or a plaque?
Yeah, so we've worked with ABBA Promotion. So we took, I mentioned Greenville, Kentucky. They have been very successful in their naming rights, and naming rights isn't something that the city has really gotten into a whole lot in previous years. And so we put together a very rough, and I can provide you all a copy of that, but we basically have a pamphlet and slip sheets and pledge cards that ABBA Promotions has made for us. We've kind of got a list of, okay, if you donate this much, you get to name a field. But as I've told former Mayor Austin, I said, if anybody comes to you and they want to donate something, I said, that's all negotiable, because we set it to something. But I mean, we're selling sponsorships right now, anything from benches and trees all the way up to individual field sponsors. We've actually, Greenville had some really cool concrete monuments that were shaped as baseballs and soccers. They were basically concrete bollards that were about 3 feet tall, and they were painted, and then they had the sponsor's name on them. You know, this field sponsored by whatever bank. And then we've got scoreboards in the outfields of each of the 4 fields, and then the one soccer field that have customized ribbons on the top that you can put logos on. So there's a lot of opportunities there, and depending on which naming right someone would be interested in, there's varying levels, and those are all kind of negotiable, I would say. But
We'd like to look at it,
Yeah.
if you could make it available.
well, and the one thing I will say, and I know the mayor had specifically said, we were requesting the lighting. I think one thing we would definitely be sure of is if the county agreed to participate with the lighting, then we would make it clear in the complex in perpetuity that the lighting in all those fields was provided or in some sort of partnership with the county. And that's, you all being a county entity, we're not really treating you all as a naming right agreement, but we would certainly do the same or more for you all than we would for anybody naming a field, because that would be a very large contribution, and it would be there in some very nice permanent format to recognize the contribution.
Thank you.
Kevin, just to expand on what Dylan had said too, so obviously the permanent recognition for the county, we have a combination, depending on what naming right it is, of contract term length for the naming rights. So some naming rights are good year to year, some naming rights are good for 10 years, depending on the significance and the individual naming rights. So future naming rights opportunities, not for the county. If the county were to donate that money, it would be in perpetuity, as said. But future naming rights in the other places that are contracted out will go to help support ongoing operations of the park as well.
So I got a question about the changing of the fields to the turf fields.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, you're not going to have quite the amount of preparation work. So is this an additional $2.5 million on top of? So you're taking the money that you would have used in sprinklers and all the base. So that's in addition to that. So you're taking that plus $2.5 million, correct?
Yes, sir. So the way it worked was we had originally gotten pricing to just do the infields and then to just do the artificial turf, and they had credited us the sprinkler system. When we looked at actually doing the outfields at our last commission meeting, that eliminated all the irrigation on that side of the complex. So it was actually a very substantial savings. So that 2.5 takes into account all the deducts that we received for import dirt, because sod. So sod and irrigation was surprisingly expensive, and so they gave us a credit for all of that in those areas.
Have you guys done any studies on the difference between turf and natural fields on the impact on the athletes?
We have. I've talked to Mr. Wright out back there. He and I had about a 2 or 3 hour conversation one day about it, and then we've had issues come up, all sorts of issues come up with artificial turf, and we've talked to the vendor, the particular vendor for this product. It's USA made. There were some issues. Even I'll just be completely transparent. There were issues about potential chemical issues with the rubber, and so the great thing about this particular turf is a few things. One, it's USA made, so the control over the quality is much better. It's not utilizing rubber as the infill. It's actually utilizing coconut husk, which is environmentally friendly, which also keeps the field cooler. And so in talking with them, there's a lot of from basically what we've gathered, especially since this is going to be primarily for youth, the amount of injuries from what we're being told between youth levels on natural grass and artificial turf are not really, I don't want to say negligible, but not, yeah.
Okay.
But, and the thing is, too, is a lot of communities in our area have been switching over to artificial turf, and I mean, I myself.
Well, that's just
grew
because
up
it's a
playing.
cheaper option to maintain over the life of the
Yeah,
complex.
absolutely. Well,
It
yeah.
has nothing to do with the safety of
But
the
I can tell you that a poorly maintained grass and dirt field is a lot more dangerous to young people than
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We can move on, yeah, that's fine.
having lived it.
Well, and that's
Well,
all-
I played it, and my kids grew up doing it too, so it just depends. I mean, again, I'm just talking about, again, we're fine, it's okay.
Yeah.
Move on.
Sure. No, thank you for the question.
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's definitely not it's definitely not something to be missed on. And Andy
Yeah.
and I talked about that quite
Yeah.
a bit. And to your point, that was kind of the thing.
Just a
was,
question.
In terms of maintenance, it's a you know natural grass is better, but if you don't have a great maintenance plan, artificial turf is better. And the other great thing about artificial turf is we have a problem in our community with availability of fields. And so sometimes we have fields available, but you can't play on them because there's too much wear and tear and it's too wet. So the great thing about an artificial turf field is you can play on it hour to hour continuously, and it's going to maintain its
Yep.
integrity. So
Yep.
that's one of the other reasons why we're
Yep,
considering it.
I'm aware of the benefits there too. Just ask that question.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So, obviously, the city's building this with, you're having, you're planning on income in the future. You know, you're talking about bringing in tournaments, doing different things, so you're gonna, the issue I have here is the county's not gonna make a dime here. It's not, it's no,
I can actually answer your question. So the income that we're planning on having from tournaments and other things in the future is not going to be something that is going to be of significance as far as a profit to the city. It's going to be, a complex like this is going to be very expensive to maintain year to year with the added personnel and the maintenance and all that. So the things that we're going to make with revenues from naming rights, revenues from any kind of tournaments that we're able to pull in, they are what our projections show anyway, is that is going to go to paying for the ongoing maintenance of the park and provide a little extra as far as profit that we're going to be able to take to support other activities. And so this is going to be something that we're doing, basically what our hopes is that over time, from an operational standpoint, an ongoing operational maintenance cost, is that it is going to be a break-even venture for the city. That's going to provide a significant amenity to our youth, and then also a significant amenity for our community to take advantage of if and when we do have tournaments come in that stay at our hotels, eat at our restaurants, do other things that support our businesses on a local level in the community.
And I just have one more question.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about the maintenance and the actual running of the day-to-day operations. I've spent the biggest part of my adult life in these complexes, either coaching or through my kids. Who's going to run this? Is it going to be a city ran, or are you guys going to contract that out? How's that going to work?
So it's I'll start and then I'll let you finish. So it's going to be kind of a quasi setup where the city is going to be ultimately responsible. However, we're going to a different model with sports-related activities in our community than we've had in the past. In the past, the city has been favorable to contracts where if a group agrees to maintain a certain field, then it has field rights. And what that has caused is sort of a monarchy on the fields, and other people who want to use the fields are not allowed to because they tear them up or they're not contributing to the maintenance costs or stuff like that. What we're doing here is we're creating a group called a sports authority. And I'll let, if you would like, to explain a little bit more about the sports authority.
Yeah, so we're looking at, and we're still fleshing out the details of the sports authority. But as the mayor said, the ultimate goal is to keep this a public facility. And so ultimately, we will have a sports complex manager and a groundskeeper who will be responsible for the facility itself. What we've tried to make clear to PCMA and all the other leagues is we don't want to get into your operations of the leagues. We want you to handle your leagues, and we want to handle the facility. So when you show up for a ball game, the field's going to be ready, everything's going to be there. But in terms of coaches, uniforms, umpires, coaches, all that thing, that's still going to be on the leagues. And so we're responsible for all the facility-related things. So what I would envision happening in conjunction with the sports authority is we would enter into some sort of rental or reservation agreement with PCMA where we go to PCMA and they say, okay, we need these 4 fields 5 nights a week from these hours on these between these dates, and we would hold that for them. And then outside of those dates, the sports complex manager would be able to reserve those fields for anyone else who wanted to use it. We're still trying to figure out what exactly that looks like, and part of the sports authority, which will most likely be appointed by the city commission, we're still figuring that out. But part of their responsibility is going to be to figure out what does this look like? These fields, do we leave them open from 8 to 5 and it's first come, first served since they're artificial turf and they can take the use and anyone can come on and use it? Or is it something where, like if a nonprofit wanted to come and host an event, they could reserve it and we would probably waive any sort of rental fee? Or if it's someone who wants to come in and host a weekend-long tournament, we're probably going to and make a profit. We're going to probably charge something for that. But it's going to ultimately be up to the sports authority and the commission to kind of make all of that work. But we want to be sure that whether there's a fee or not a fee associated, if the field's available, it's open for public use.
Sure.
The park fields will all go away.
So, you need a.
We can,
Yep.
so short term, with this first phase, the PCMA ball fields will go away. And it will be able to accommodate PCMA operations as well as girls softball. Long term, what the goal of the entire facility is to take a comprehensive look at all of our fields in the city, because we have some that are rarely used, some that are never used, some that are used more often. And transition many of our fields that are currently in operation over to the sports complex to open up those areas for other amenities to provide to the community.
The new fields would accommodate Henderson Flash, semi-pro team, I assume, and
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I'm glad you asked that because I wanted to clarify. So the first phase, we're building the 4 200-foot fields, which would accommodate PCMA and younger, and then girls softball of any age, which we're not moving them from Newman Park, but if they wanted to use this facility, especially in cases of rainout, they could. The future fields to the west and to the north, those would specifically be for what we call HRA, and then the northernmost field would be for Flash. So those aren't in the current phase. We're just talking about the 4 200-foot fields and then the 1 multi-purpose and potentially 2 others. So that's what's in this current phase. So the plan is, the hope is eventually there's a couple fields at Park Field that in the middle that we could maybe have go away, maybe have adult softball take over one of the other larger fields there, leave Flash there, and then eventually move all of HRA out to this facility so that all the youth sports are at this complex, and then you've got kind of your adult softball and Henderson Flash, kind of your older sports still at Park Field. That's kind of in an unwritten, just spoken master plan, kind of conceptual planning that we've discussed, but that's kind of the idea.
thanks.
We have a couple choices. We have an ask before us, and we can vote on it now if you like. We also have an ask from our friends at HMP&L. The other thing we could do is schedule a workshop very soon to work through both of those. It'll give you a chance to digest some of this information.
That's probably best.
I would assume that both Dylan and the mayor would be willing to take your individual phone calls to
Sure.
answer any more questions. What's the preference of the court?
I'd like to do a workshop.
I
Me
agree.
too.
Okay, we will schedule this, and if we'll work with you to maybe come up with a mutual time so you could come back and attend the workshop, because I know there'll be more questions. Brad, and we'll work with you on that. Serious dollars we're talking about. We want to do the best we can. We absolutely want to be community partners when it makes sense. We always need to be as wise as we can with our resources as you are. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you very, very much. Without,
Yes, thank you,
if
guys.
nobody has any
Appreciate
more
the answers.
questions,
Well, I
Thank
was just
you.
going to ask one last thing. Where are you right now as far as construction? It's been
Yeah.
a pretty good season for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it has. It's been a little bit wetter sometimes than what we would have liked. Right now, with all these things that we have added, we are still looking to open in the spring/summer of next year. That's always kind of been our goal. So right now, dirt work is well underway. They've started putting in the footings and the block for the concession stand in the middle of those 4 fields. The maintenance building, which I failed to mention earlier, it's in the back corner. It's got all the wood up, and they're going to be working on the siding on that soon. So we're still hopeful. And part of the switch to artificial turf, we had planned to put Bermuda on all these fields, and we're kind of at the tail end of being able to plant Bermuda and have it established in time by next season. So part of the reason for the artificial turf as well is that will allow it, us to get on it immediately. So our hope is that while it may not look 100% finished by next spring, the hope is that it can begin having play next spring/summer.
Coming down the Audubon Parkway, I think people are going to be pretty impressed when they see this kind of a development, and then they come right around, they see our 4-H and fairgrounds. I think that will be a good calling card,
Yeah.
at least for that, especially with the I-69 corridor. That'll be
And if any,
upgraded.
And if any of you all have ever driven on the interstate as you head into as you're heading up from Nashville into Bowling Green, there's that sign that says Bowling Green, Kentucky, home of Western Kentucky University. We're looking at doing something similar to that on the Audubon, so it welcomes people as they're coming from Owensboro into Henderson to kind of make, as you're saying, to make that statement of you're in Henderson now, and we're proud of it. So.
Yeah, and it was a good point that you made, because that was actually, as we were working through properties 5, 6, 7 years ago, that was one of the most attractive things of this specific property, is that it fronts Airline Road, which provides a good ingress and egress, but backs up to Audubon, which also showcases an important amenity for our community and our kids.
All righty, we will be in touch soon on a workshop.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Andy Rideout from the Extension Office. He's going to present their tax rates, and I know you've got a meeting at 11, so we will do this quickly. And it is easy to do quickly because you're merely asking for the compensating rate, which is good news.
Well, you beat me to it. I was going to ask for 2 or 3 million. That seems to be the.
Now, we spoke earlier about that.
Well, I'm proud to say that the Extension Office is very fiscally responsible. We came at and under budget last year, and tax revenues were up a little bit. So our board voted to stick with the compensating rate, not raise taxes. And on real property, tangible property, and inventory tax, we're at 0.035, 0.0431, and 0.0431 respectively. And we did opt to take the optional aircraft tax and in-transit inventory, which amounts to very little. So that's what our board decided to take with y'all's blessing, and that's where we're at.
In this case, the tax rates did not increase beyond the 4% threshold for actually vote on this. We merely accept these into the record, and that is our only task.
Easy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy.
Good job. Make a motion to accept in the record. Can I get one, please?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Easy peasy.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
And keep up the good work. Extension Office does great stuff. We, as you know, have been ongoing negotiations with Penn Virginia, our partners out at Sandy Lee Watkins Park. And as you all know, in recent discussions, we are swapping with them pieces of ground to assure that in the future, both the entrance to the park, which now technically is on Penn Virginia-owned ground, our materials yard and buildings, which are now, part of which are now on Penn Virginia-owned ground, revert to the county's possession, and in swapping for those, we would offer them a piece of the park which is not utilized in any way for recreation and probably was not going to be, we were not going to be able to get to that and develop it for decades, most likely, and make that swap. And then with that deal, perhaps also end any ongoing oversight they might have, any complaints we might have about them, kind of have a nice amicable split there, and we all move on. One of the pieces that they offered to us, actually the piece that includes the portion that oversteps our entrance, had an active mining permit on it, as you know, I think. And to convert that to recreational use when you have a piece of property in a coal mine that area that still has an active mining permit on it, you have to go through a process to get the state to sign off on you converting it to a new use. That's going to take a while. It may be next spring before all those processes are finished. We've actually hired a consultant to help walk us through that and get that done. In the meantime, at a recent meeting with Penn Virginia reps, they suggested we go ahead and swap the existing parcels, part of this deal, that aren't subject to this state oversight, and get that finished. And then when the new parcel, that 18-acre parcel, I believe is the total, gets done with all it needs to get done with regulators in Frankfurt, that can come into our possession as well. And Steve, anything you want to add to that?
I would just ask that whatever we do, that it's subject to running a title opinion and having a clean title coming back.
Yeah. Subject to that, I would ask the court if it would be okay to move ahead with swapping the parcels that aren't subject to this state regulation. And then when that one becomes available, Penn Virginia has already made us a proposal that we can add that at our discretion, now or at our discretion. And of course, we won't do it until the state completes its work. So is it okay to go ahead and swap what we can now, get that done, and then when the 18 acres comes ready to do, we can add that in as well?
Yeah.
I make a motion that we go ahead and get the 2 parcels.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And I, just to be certain, your motion is subject to the items that Steve
Clean
just
title.
mentioned.
Correct. I'm sorry.
Okay, we got a bid opening for asphalt. Nick Stallings, can come open up some asphalt bids.
I too come asking for money. All right. All right, the first bid is from Scotty's, and bid price. All right, I've got a bid price of asphalt binder, 0.5D, is $94.36 a ton. Asphalt base, which is 10D, at $87.91 a ton. Then another requirement I asked for was a maximum width the paver can pave, so that way we can pave all our roads full width and not have the center line joint. And theirs is 19.6, which will encompass all of our roads that we have on our list. I love doing that. It's awesome.
For those who can't see, Nick has basically a machete to open these envelopes, and it's kind of fun to watch.
It works out. All right, so next bid we have is Jay Trudoff. They bid for the asphalt binder is $99 a ton, and for the asphalt base is $85 a ton. They have a maximum width of 21 feet. All right.
So the 19.5 foot you said would,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, our next bid is from Rogers Group. They came in with asphalt binder at $92.68 a ton, and their base is at $86.87 a ton. Maximum width is 23 feet. Okay, our last bid is from EMB Paving. They came in with their binder at $95.75 a ton, their base at $82 a ton, with a maximum width of 20 feet. So I got some looking to do. I'll go back and look at these, but I was going to try to select somebody today, but I may have to look back and kind of go through the prices and the quantities I have, because some they were up and down on binder versus base, so it can fluctuate the pricing, so,
I think that's fine.
all right.
Next, you're going to make a recommendation on the multi-material baler.
Yes, we, last court opened up all the bids. There were 10 bids for baler, for a recycling baler. We, as y'all recall, we received a $147,000 grant, which we utilized for a new baler. It would up our production, help to be able to get some of our larger, corrugated boxes that we have, be able to get them in and process those without having to cut them down and move them all around and things that we got to do some extra processing that we got to do on our side, or we can put them in this baler to take care of it. A lot of the bids were close, but with delivery time and startup, shipping, maintenance costs, the clear-cut winner was D-Hart Recycling and Equipment. They're out of Missouri. They have a sales guy, support staff right across the river in Evansville. Their winning price was $156,950. So that will put out some of our, little bit of money out on our account to complete the price paying. But they bidded a Titan 6 XL, which I'm sure all y'all familiar with that, right? It's well, actually, out of all these bids, there were four different types of balers that were bidded out through all the different companies, and but the Titan 6 XL was pretty frequent through the bids.
Who had any idea there were so many different brands of baler?
I know. It's like now I want to get into it. So that's my bid. I mean, that's my recommendation, and I look for you all to give me a yay or nay.
You have the recommendation. Any other questions?
So, this Reaction Distributing, it was crazy cheaper, was it not?
Yes, Reaction, they're out of Canada, and they are under master agreement. The only thing is their machine that they bid did not meet any of our specifications.
Okay.
For our biggest thing is opening width, conveyor width, so we're not getting things clogged up, having to shut the machine down. Guys got to climb up the conveyor to get boxes out, or hang-ups that we have. This one did not match any of that. So,
Alright. Thank you.
Yep.
I move that we move ahead with the purchase of the D-Hart Recycling Equipment.
Second.
We have motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nick, you stay up there for a second. You see on your agenda conversations about Trigg Turner Road. We've still got a little bit more work to do on that. Just to give you an update, the newly reconfigured Cord in Geneva and Trigg Turner Road now that goes in a different path around the airport and then connects with 136, left a stub of the old Trigg Turner Road that we're going to have to rename because it will be very confusing to have GPS show you this little stub of a road and then you realize you can't get through to where Trigg Turner continues on down south. So we are going to propose that we rename that little stub Geneva Place. There are two addresses on it and one adjoining property owner. We have to go through, I've already checked with the two address owners of the homes that are actually on what will be Geneva Place. Neither expressed any trepidation about renaming the road. One was a little put out that he was going to have to do anything at all, change his address at all, but we kind of locked in on that requirement. But we are going to get at least one, if not all of them, to sign a petition, which is part of the KRS requirement. That will be taken care of, and the other thing we'll be doing is taking into our county road list the new configuration with descriptions of where it's located exactly, mileage points and things like that. But we still have a little bit of work to do, and it'll take another meeting at least to get that done. So that's what that's all about. Hang tight on that. Nick, you also have a request on a member of your personnel.
Yes, as you all were aware many months ago, the road superintendent, got injured, had surgery. Surgery had an infection, had to go back in for surgery. He's still off. He's been off since around the second week of May. During that time, I've had another somewhat park supervisor step up. He's been my road superintendent over his duration, and from our talks with Glenn, it could be upwards of a few more months before he can come back for any type of work. So I was asked you all court-wise if there's some way I can compensate Bobby, maybe give him a hourly raise for this extra endeavor he's graciously taken on, and definitely has helped out the road stuff while I'm dealing with the parks or recycling or whatever I'm doing.
What's the exact bump?
I was wanting to take him up another $1 an
So
hour.
it would go from what to what?
It would go from $21.50 to $22.50.
Okay. I think we all understand the challenge road department's facing with Glenn's absence, and we hope he gets better soon. But considering the division of work since Glenn had to be gone, I think this is the least we can do for Bobby. And I unless you have any great objection, I think I think it's something we should do.
I agree.
So you've heard the request. Can I get a motion to approve that?
Motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to increase Bobby from $21.50 to $22.50. Yeah,
It's Robert Proctor.
Robert. Yeah.
And he'll be just acting.
Yes, and he has been, yes.
Okay.
So, and then whenever Glenn's
With the hopes that,
Yep,
yeah,
yep,
Glenn will
whenever
be
Glenn's
coming
comes
back to-
then we can figure out what his duties can be and what he can do, and we'll work on that.
To reiterate what Nick said, it could be months for Glenn. Could be months. So unfortunately, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And
Thank you, Nick.
let me wait a second. I may have said something incorrectly. He would be $23 an hour, and I said 25.
So you're going
I mean
from-
$22.50, so it's $23 an hour.
23. So it would be from what to what?
He'd be 23. He would go up to 24.
Okay. Who made the motion?
I did.
You want to amend that motion to that effect?
Amended to the $24 an hour increase from $23.
You get a motion in a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Sheriff Chip Stoffer, want to give us an update on some retention issues and perhaps another salary request.
Yes. Again, I've sort of come up in pale in comparison. I'd like to reorganize the agenda, so when I come up, it's a little different than 3.1 million and 1.5 million, because those are some large figures. But I'm here to speak to you about a retention incentive for my deputies. And why am I coming mid-fiscal year? Because I have a deputy that has been given a conditional job offer. And with that, that means it'll be 14 months at the bare minimum for me to be able to replace him. Right now, go ahead.
No, that's a long time.
So right now, as of today, the soonest I could get an employee into the academy is April of '24. And then there's an additional 8 months of training. That'll take 8 months for him to get out. So you're looking at October of next year before I can get, if I were to lose him. So what I'm requesting is a $3,000 retention incentive for all employees that have been here 3 years or more, and moving forward every third year we would do another retention incentive. Currently that would be 12 employees, and I'm speaking strictly of road sworn call taking deputies. Not, we have some that are sworn that are court security officers, and those aren't included.
And when When you say a $3,000 incentive, that would, and we've had this discussion before, that would be rolled into their salary?
No, it would be just a straight,
bonus.
no bonus, not at all. An incentive.
I know
Because
you can't get
we have
bonuses.
we have spoken with Mr. Gold, and it's an incentive or,
It's a retention incentive.
It's a retention
yes, it's a
incentive.
retention incentive. So no, they would not be figured in to salaries. Now, again,
So how does this work?
So, okay, Friday, Colonel Duncan and the chief, or the sheriff came to me, and were asking about this, and of course, the first thing I went to was, like, I'm sure Brenda thinks as well, bonuses we can't do. That's not something that governments are allowed to do. County governments especially. So I reached out to Rich Ornstein at CAECO, who's been, he's a resource for us on a lot of things, and discussed this with him. And it was his belief that if it was done as an incentive program, which means that the sheriff will have to come up with a written policy, breaking down all the technicalities of it, that can be done. That's then part of compensation, rather than a bonus, like hey, we had a good year, hey, we've got money left over, or something like that. No, this would be part of a compensation package, and it was his belief that was something that was acceptable and would pass muster with auditors and things like that, all subject to Brenda's okay and making sure that the policy would absolutely do that. But that was, so the key is it can't just be for one individual or anything like that. It needs to be a plan that is, across the board and has, rules attached to it, things like that.
So this would be going forward,
going forward.
as of whenever, going
Yes,
forward,
and then
3
and-
years from that date.
Yes, well, and the idea behind it is right now, currently, employees are subject to a 3-year contract, that if they were to leave, the hiring agency's required to pay us. So that's the reason we went the 3-year mark. 3-year, they're off what we would consider their contract or their probation, and probation's a bad word, off their contract. So that's when it would start. And there's no guarantee that this is going to keep the said deputy, but I felt I had to do something, because I really believe, as I briefly spoke to the judge, I believe this very easily for our agency could be a domino. If they were to leave, that one would leave and then another, and again, and if you get behind, right now we have 3 deputies that we hire, that we conditionally job offer August 1st. They start the academy February 11th.
The current court, I don't believe, and I say current, I mean Bill and Taylor, have not experienced this question. We have been dealing with this since I was appointed judge. And every year, the need for new law enforcement officers on all levels, among all communities, is acute. And the regions around us, the counties around us, including across the river, are all bumping up pay to recruit officers. And our deputies are subject to the siren song of more money. We do not offer our deputies hazardous duty retirement because of the expense of that. Others do. So that's another nugget that we fight against. We have bumped up salaries at the Sheriff's Department significantly over the last 7 years, trying to stay caught up. But this arms race only gets worse, and it is exacerbated exactly by what Chip mentioned about the difficulty of getting deputies into the academy and through the academy. It's been that way since the pandemic. It hadn't gotten a whole lot better.
No, it's actually getting worse. And again, we're actually at the Sheriff's Conference this week in Owensboro, and I'm sure this is going to be one of the topics that we get to later in the week, is that the Department of Criminal Justice Training is struggling with instructors. The state has just broken ground in Madisonville to create a Western Kentucky training academy, but the conversations that I had yesterday at the conference were that they're looking at that just being our yearly in-service location, because they don't know that they can get enough instructors to try to have 2 standalone academies. I mean, and again, it's a bidding war. I mean, and that's, you know, I know that, and I don't like comparing, you know, us to other agencies, but the city is getting ready to start. They're trying to work through some sort of sign-on bonus of looking at least $10,000. They're doing a step program that every 2 years, along with pay raises, they get lump sum checks, and you know, it just. And what I'm scared of is this is the beginning, and then we're going to see ourselves in the service that our community expects is going to be greatly limited.
We work to retain all of our employees, there's no doubt, and compensation's one of the factors in retaining employees. What makes the sheriff's department different is, there are some positions that if somebody gets lured away, it's not too difficult to find somebody with similar skill set and recruit them in. Sheriff's deputies are different because of the training needs, because of the public safety factor. While they are not available yet to the sheriff's department, and other, you know, considerations, this is really important. We try to do all we can, and I think we're all in agreement that it is important. And Chip could have come and asked for 1,000 things, but I think this incentive pay plan is probably the most reasonable at the moment. But I believe what you need to do, Chip, is bring us back this specific plan. I'm not sure we can vote on it right now without seeing what that plan will be. Get agreement from y'all? We need to see that in order to know what we're voting on exactly before we do.
That's fine. I just, part of this to me is try to get out ahead of it and to sort of feel the room, the temperature of the room.
Yeah, no, write it up, we're good.
Yeah, because the reason is because I'm gonna have deputies that are listening and waiting to see how receptive, and I believe, I mean, not speaking for you, that you're receptive, you just want to see the plan in place, and we'll get with Mr. Gold to make sure the language is adequate, and
absolutely
Brenda to make sure that we hit all the, hit everything on the head, because we had talked about it. I mean, we have a very good idea of how we want to do it, just making sure that it meets the standard that's expected.
And I'll, just warn everybody, this won't be the last we hear about this.
No,
we're trying to take steps, but it will only be more competitive.
Well, and that's what, again, I'm not a big coming in the middle of a fiscal year and having these conversations, because I think that's the appropriate time is when we budget. What we have found is that our like organizations in other communities don't necessarily follow that same line of thought about let's do it at a fiscal budget. We're just going to do it whenever we think that we need to do it. But yes, I'll get that together and I'll get it back to you.
Good. Is that acceptable to everyone?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it, Sheriff.
And I think the mood is very open to this. We just need to see the final plan.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you. And you also have in your packet the sheriff's monthly reports. These are the normal reports. I assume you don't have anything to add to those. Any questions on those? Entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Chip.
Thank you.
We'll be
Thank you, Chip.
forward to your report. Mr. Gold, you have personnel action?
Well, Judge, actually, turns out I don't have a personnel action. Had a gentleman that was going to be joining our office, and he was going to be primarily paid by the state, and then we were going to supplement his income to do some county work with some county funds. Turns out he actually was interested in just the part-time part, so don't need county money for that. Don't need to use any of our budget for that. So,
But is he going to help you on the county side?
Yes, he is, and we're very happy to have him. Michael Zott is his name, and it is likely that he will end up at some point becoming full-time, and we'll come to you and talk to you about that. We've got the money in the budget to do it. But we do have some checks to turn over to you.
Okay.
Jail fees collected, $165. Flow through from the city, $458.33. So normally, for our Judges Scholar, I've got a lot more money than I can hand to you for a little while, but today it's only $623.33, bringing today's total to $35,737.64. So if you could hand that to the judge, please.
Thank you. Move to accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Deacon? It's kind of fun to hand that amount of money, even if for only a brief moment. As Mr. Gold often says, it's a lesson for life. You get money given to you, and the government takes it away. So that's, just get ready. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Steve. Treasurer Ryder?
This is the second reading of Budget Amendment Number 1 for the current fiscal year. This is increasing unbudgeted receipts of the General Fund, LGEA, Local Government Economic Assistance, and the road funds. The total amount of this is $416,408.84. The breakdown for this is General Fund miscellaneous reimbursements, $15,689.70. Road Fund surplus prior year, $300,719.14. Local Government Economic Assistance Fund, $100,000. The corresponding appropriations for this is General Fund Disaster and Emergency Services, $15,689.70. Road Fund Road Maintenance Asphalt, $400,719.14. The total for this budget amendment, $416,408.84.
You have second reading. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
I have one transfer. This is a cash transfer, transferring from the general fund to the opioid fund, $22,674.01. This is actually transferring the electronic fund transfer, which was deposited into the appropriate account.
It is not unusual for the state to sometimes deposit our funds into the wrong place, and she has to officially transfer them. So they've gotten better at that. But so we have a fund transfer to approve. Get a motion?
I'll make that motion, or second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I have claims from the general fund to Magistrate Putman, $4,983.24. This is for calendar year 2023 training and is to be paid with the September 28, 2023 payroll. This is to come from the Fiscal Court Training Appropriation line. To Brent Jacobs, $572.72. This is reimbursement of IT and maintenance supplies and is to be paid from the IT services appropriation line as well as the renewals and repairs courthouse appropriation line. First National Bank of Omaha, which is the clerk's credit card, $2,190.93. The majority of this is to come from the clerk's office supplies and postage appropriation line. To Preferred Construction Services, $2,475. This is for Judicial Center roof repairs and is to come from the Judicial Center renewals and repairs appropriation line. To Visa, $521.50. The majority of this is to come from the Judge and Staff Training Travel appropriation line. From the Jail Fund to Advanced Document Solutions, which is for copier charges, $945.02, and is to come from the Data Processing Equipment appropriation lines. To Republic Services for monthly service, $784.13 from Contracted Services appropriation line. To U.S. Bank, which is a credit card, $4,150.20. The majority of this is to come from prisoner transport and training travel appropriation lines. From the LGEA fund to the City of Henderson, $34,685.37. This is for the April through June 2023 911, and is to come from the Communication Center 911 appropriation line.
I move we pay the claims.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions of Brenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Under old business, I wanted to make sure, because I think we've talked about this in the past, but I wanted to make doubly sure that I got your approval. When we do economic development projects, they come to us, we have kind of a base incentive plan. Previous court approved this, court before them approved this, and what I mean by this is when a economic development opportunity arises and they are applying for state incentives, the state requires us to have some sort of local skin in the game, a local match, and it's usually based on a percentage of whatever the state is offering. And many times when the state contacts us, they need an answer to what we're willing to give right away, perhaps before the next fiscal court meeting. And sometimes, as you know, these are all confidential, and until we have approval from the state, we have to talk about them confidentially, and that can delay the process as well. So what we did in the past is we approved a basic starting point incentive package to get the ball rolling. It wasn't necessarily the last offer we're ever going to make or the final one. It was just something to assure the state that we were willing to participate in the project and, again, begin the process. That basic plan in the past has been a waiver of the construction permit fee. If you remember, it's 1% of the total project. That can be a lot of money. It can be a little bit of money, but in many cases for big economic development projects, it's a good amount of money. The other thing we would do is waive our occupational tax on the new jobs created for a total of 10 years. Those two things, and that means that's not really money coming out of our current bank account. We're just waiving some things we might have gotten, but we're not out of them if they don't come here. Follow me? So those two things, very small really in the long run, but they help us get the ball rolling. And I wanted to come back to this court and make sure that you're okay with that. It tends to be enough money to satisfy the state's initial ask. And again, from there the negotiations really begin. So any questions about that? And I'll entertain a motion to approve that we continue to have that as our basic boilerplate offer to begin negotiations with. And if we approve it now, that means I can go ahead and do it whenever that opportunity arises, and we don't have to go through court every single time to do that.
So
Did we not change the permit fee?
Yes,
Well,
I thought we changed the permitting fee.
Well, we waived, that's right, we went to 16 cents per square foot. We'd still waive that, basically. And in the end, I think that was ending up being less money anyway. But so we would waive the current construction permit fee.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah, sorry. So did I hear a motion?
Yeah, I motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions about that? Again, every final negotiation with every economic development project will flow through the court. It will never end with just that initial offer, and there will be no action done without it eventually being voted on by court and bringing public. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. With that, anybody from the audience like to say anything for good of the county? Yes, sir.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bruce Farmer, the coroner of Henderson County. I've talked with the judge about this matter a couple times in the last week or so, and since we're unable to get some of the information out as well as we used to be able to, I'm trying to get anybody who's watching this on cable and from there. We have went through a heat spell 2 weeks ago, all y'all were aware of. And I've talked with some people with the Weather Service. there's a chance we may have some more days because how strange the weather's been going and all like this. But what we're trying to encourage people is they're not making contact with family and friends and checking on their well-being. And this is one of the things we're really trying to push toward people, just to see how they're doing. So, for example, from August 26th to September 9th, we had 9 cases, 5 of them were decomposed bodies that hadn't been checked on or anything else, and things have really got kind of bad on them, which is part of our job in trying to make identifications all. But some of the, couple of these were that if family just called them, see how they're doing, you know, this is what we're kind of going for, to get them checking on. But we've had, during that course of time, we've had 6 decomposed bodies. We normally only have about 4 or 5 a year. So we had a big grouping with the heat and all. And it got so bad that we filled up all the freezer units around here, that Vanderburgh County didn't have anything available at the time. Madisonville, we already had it filled up. And I got calling around, and the closest place we could find to put a deceased was either at the Hardin County Coroner's Office in Elizabethtown or clear to Louisville. So anyway it goes, we're over 2 hours away that we're having to transport bodies. Now, we've got the exhaust system that James tried put in our office. We found out it doesn't quite work like we thought. We were pretty well stinking up the whole area over there, and James and I have talked, and we're working on making some changes there. But the biggest thing is getting hold of friends and family, just checking on them. Quick phone call. Another thing is we're working on is to see if we can find a small freezer unit about the size of what our coolers are, that, I mean, nobody around here has anything. And Madisonville can only hold 3. And so we start loading up at any time. It's a problem. It's a problem for our office and all, because we're still working on trying to find families on a couple of these bodies. And we've been working on it. One of our deputies and one of the detectives from the Sheriff's Department has gone clear to Ohio County today. We think we found somebody who's a relative of the deceased that we pulled out of the river 2 weeks ago. And they're going to go over and take DNA samples. It's going to take us a while to get an answer, so we're going to have to be storing that body as long as they'll let us in Madisonville. But I've just got a call from them, and we've already got 2 down there, and I got a feeling they're going to tell me I got to do something with them. And I don't know what we're going to do with them. But like I said, we're looking into some more equipment and all from there, and we'll come back and talk to you once we know a little bit more. But the biggest thing right now is during these, you know, anytime temperatures above, 80, 85 degrees, call these people, just, quick phone call. I had a meeting with the administrator at Red Banks Tires. Used to be Red Banks Tires had a system set up where there were washers outside the doors of different colors, and every morning they went by and checked the people, make sure that they were okay, because we've had a few out of there. And what I found out is it's no longer a required thing with Red Banks. It's optional. And to me, that's unacceptable in my books, and I've been talking to everybody I can over there to make this right. And these are the things we need to do to look after our mothers, our fathers, our aunts, and our uncles, you know, all the older generation and all like this. So my thing today is, like I said, if we can get out on cable and all, and any media, that when the temperature goes up, check on friends and family, and you know, just make sure they're okay, because like I said, 2 of these were people in apartments that nobody checked on them in, you know, a week or so, and things started getting bad. So we just want to get the word, and tell your friends, tell your neighbors. That's all we ask. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than glad to try to answer them for you. But this was just basically, like I said, the judge and I talked, a point of information to try to get the word spread out.
Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it. And you don't have to wait till the temperature's high either. You
No.
call all the time. Check on your loved ones.
Yeah.
Check on your loved ones. Anything else for good of the county? Master Southern, good of the county.
Congratulations, Deacon. You not only did you get Judge or Scholar, you got a record-long court meeting. So, I don't know who you're going out to eat with, but this guy here, spend his money, because he just get 2 desserts.
I'll take it from him.
But it says a lot to get picked from your school to be recognized. I mean, that says a lot about you. It says a lot about your character, your parents. I'm sure y'all are proud, and keep doing what you're doing. And all's good in District 3.
Thank you. Master Tompkins, who will be taking Deacon to lunch. Thank you for doing that.
Yes, sir. Deacon, congratulations, buddy. It's just a testament to the hard work that you put in. You know, it's going to pay off, and doing the right thing when nobody's watching also gets you to where you're going here. It's called being a leader. So continue to work hard and do those things, and it'll serve you well throughout life. So looking forward to talking to you a little bit more over lunch, and congratulations again. Congratulations to Mom and Dad, and all's good in a second.
Master Putman.
Thank you, Judge. Congratulations, Deacon. It is a big deal. Believe it or not, proclamation. I don't know if anybody said. I know one guy's got a proclamation, but I think when you look around, we've been at it for a pretty good while, and wish I could do something to give one. But anyway, just in all sincerity, that's a pretty big honor. You know, today is your day in Henderson County.
Mm-hmm.
Could be another birthday, like a birthday. You can celebrate like a birthday if you like. But I know the parents are proud, and we're glad you was here today to celebrate the Judge's Scholar Award. And Judge, all is good in the fourth. Thank you.
Master Starks.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, everyone, for being here and sticking with us. This has been quite an enlightening meeting. We've gone through a lot of stuff, and so I do want to congratulate you, Deacon. Both my sons are Holy Name products, and proud of it. And it's great, I think, that we added this, Kurt, so thank you for taking care of that. Appreciate you guys being here, and I know I look over at Deacon. He didn't look too glassy-eyed there, so I think he stayed alert throughout the whole meeting, which is to his credit, and I look forward to a lot of great things out of you in the future as well. So best of luck to you, and enjoy your lunch. And since we're talking about Holy Name, I'll just put in a quick plug, if I can, for their fall festival, which is just right around the corner. So some fun, we still have some fun things left to do here in our community of Henderson before the year's out. So with that, all else is good. Just be safe out there on the roads. I've been through a lot of road construction all over Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and I know we've got our fair share of it, but it's going on everywhere. Just slow down, be safe.
Mr. Gold.
Thank you, Judge. And, I'll tell you, you've got a special young man here, because I talked to him before the meeting, and he said, I don't know why they're naming a day after me. I don't know what this is. And his principal said, we really work on humility with our students, and maybe we've done too good of a job, because I told him, I'm like, you're a big deal. This is a big thing. And I tell you, I sit next to a whole lot of young people here, and they all have varying levels of being involved in things. And I told him before that a lot of what we do in meetings like this falls under the category of boring but important. And I think we delivered on a lot of that today. I did feel like we were in a governmental episode of Shark Tank there for a little while. But the entire time he stayed engaged. He was, after the really long presentations, I said, hey, are you bored yet? And he said, no, we're getting to tax rates next. And I went, I've never met a young person interested in tax rates, so that's great, and that says a lot about what you've learned about government while you've been at Holy Name, and staying engaged and keeping your eyes on the important things. So good job. And I know you're awful proud of him, and your school is proud of you, and we're proud to have you, and we're proud that this is your day. So celebrate it. Sorry that we took quite so much of it, but there were a lot of really important things that we talked about today. Other than that, things are good in the county attorney's office. Very happy to have filled that part-time position, and did it in a way that didn't end up having to use any of our county budget too. So wins all around.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. And I would take exception to one thing. I think this was not an example of boring but important. This was all over the map. We went from broadband to sports complexes to asphalt to deputy pay, and finished with decomposing bodies. I think that's a...
Don't forget the tax rates.
And the tax rates. Throw that in there. So, Deacon, this is as entertaining as it gets. I mean, really. And so you saw a good one, and you hung in there, and I know you were asking good questions, and I'm glad you're here. You should be proud. Mr. and Mrs. Kitchens, you should be proud, and I hope you enjoy lunch. After that, you got to go back to school, unfortunately. But for at least a few more minutes here, another hour, you're on your own, baby. You don't have to go back to school, but I'm proud for you, and I'm glad Holy Name is well represented with you, and congratulations. Just hang out right afterwards, and you can make arrangements with Taylor on where you're going to go to lunch. You got a favorite place? Food is food. I will again take exception. Food is not just food, but I know when I was your age, I'd eat anything that was put in front of me. Yeah, anyway, so I hear what you're saying. But I'm sure Taylor will find something that's good. All right. With that, I want to remind everybody about 9/11 yesterday. Hope that was in your thoughts. I know there are a lot of good events coming up around the community. This is going to be a busy time of year, too. Fall gets really busy, and I hope everybody gets to participate, including, for those of you who are properly ticketed, the Pratt Industries ribbon cutting Thursday. Quite a party they're going to throw out there, and I'm proud of that, and I know our partners in the city are quite proud of that. So moving on in that project, which is quite amazing. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor can leave.